I'm turning the recorder on. Lou, what time is it?
6:01.
Thank you. This is August 9th, 2022. This is the Bluff Town Council regular meeting. Roll call.
Jim Sayers.
Luann Hook.
Brant Murray.
I may have been muted, Linda Sosa.
Ann Leffinen.
Erin Nelson, serving as town manager.
All right, so the first order of business are approval of the Bluff Town Council meeting minutes of August 2nd, 2022. Has everyone looked at them, received them, and are there any corrections? Any public or any comment?
Motion to approve.
Second, Mayor.
No discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then the second is the approval of the Bluff Town Council work session minutes of August 3rd, 2022. Has everyone received them? Are there any changes, modifications, points of discussion?
Motion to approve is presented, Mayor.
Second.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then it's unanimous. I have to shift here a little bit. I'm in the office, so I'm trying to figure out exactly where everything fits. So this is public comment. There will be a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to comment. If you exceed that time limit without permission, the meeting controller will mute you. If you have a public comment to make, go ahead and let us know. Now wait a minute to be sure that it's not somebody having problems muting and unmuting. All right, then hearing nothing from the audience for public comment, we'll move to number 1 under unfinished business. A review and vote on the draft letter to Glenn Gurney regarding removal of a dismantled hangar at the Bluff Airport. I sent that out to everyone. Have you all looked at it? And are there changes you want to make? Any additions, modifications?
It was an excellent letter, Mayor. And I'll motion to approve that and send it.
Oh,
Just hold on a second. Jim, were you going to?
I'll second for the purpose of information.
Mr. Hook.
Yeah, thank you. The letter looked good. There was one sentence that I would suggest a change. It was towards the bottom of the first page or the middle of the page. And the sentence read, "No hangar has been built by you at the Bluff Town Airport." That implies to me that if he built one real quickly, it might be okay. I thought maybe we should reword it. "You have not been authorized to build a hangar at the Bluff Town Airport, and there have been no efforts by you to retrieve the kit." Just for your consideration.
I like that change, Mayor, and I'll change my motion to include that.
And I'll second that.
And normally we wouldn't take public comment on a letter that we wrote that we're going to vote to send out, but I think this is an exception because Jim Hook is our manager and much more familiar with the facts of the history. So thank you, Jim Hook, for making that. So all in favor of the motion as amended, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then it's unanimous. I'll make that amendment and we'll go out in tomorrow's mail along with email to Mr. Gurney at his last known 2 addresses and his email address that he used to correspond with me.
Thank you.
Then the next item is an update on the CCC design review team and a review and vote on the joint banking resolution. I'll get to that after we hear the update.
Sounds good. So there is a banking resolution. I wanted to know that. But anyway, it was, we had a meeting today at about, from about 2 to 2:50 or so. Brent was not present. Damien, David Conine, and Aaron Nelson was a guest. Am I looking at the right one here? Excuse me. Here we go. Yeah, Heather came in at 2:20. There was quite a long, there was a question about the minutes, and that led to quite a long discussion of grantsmanship and grant writing between Dave Conan and I regarding a particular large funder. And, you know, there, I don't know what to say about it, but it was a discussion in which we did not agree. That went right to the rest of the agenda, which was pretty straightforward. The discussion on the funding was not entirely resolved, but I think we're going to continue that discussion. Let me see, nothing really new that hasn't been brought up before. They probably are going to plant some winter vegetables in the UDB garden. And I don't know if there's anything else that's of any new stuff. I'm writing a vision statement for my archive idea that I've had. So far, everything has been positively received with regard to the Bluff area source literature archive idea. And if we ever get into the building, it'll be wonderful, I'm sure. If there are any questions, I'll take them.
So first of all, who was on the meeting?
Damien Ballerman, a guest of David's, David, Aaron, and I, and Heather came in at 2:20.
I did not make the meeting today.
She was driving, so she wasn't really a full participant either. She's on her way to Salt Lake City.
Does anybody have any questions, or Aaron, do you have anything that you want to add to this? Go ahead,
Go
Aaron.
for it, Aaron.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only other thing that I would add, and Jim, kind of mentioned it, but there have been a couple discussions now about like these garden boxes, and I was curious if like we had walked that out with them in terms of, just kind of the location, if it would be, I'm not gonna say it's gonna get in the way of anything that we're gonna do, but just for planning purposes, I can't quite visualize where they're hoping to put them. And then they had also talked about this like prototype structure, and same question for that, just in terms of kind of where are we going to put that. And yeah.
If you're talking about the prototype structure that Damien mentioned,
Yes.
that is the result of a grant that UDB received separate from us from the American Heart Association for a solar greenhouse that can be deployed at individual homes. And it's a UDB project. Those guys talk about it, but it's really not part of the partnership.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. First, staying with the prototype and the garden. We have not reached any kind of a consensus, as far as I can recall, and I could be wrong, about how the use of the outside space is divided up. So are any of these things permanently placed, or are they temporary? And then once we get to the division of the outside space, something that if we allocated it differently, that those could be moved?
The outside space has not been allocated, except on a temporary basis when some function is going outside. That's only happened once or twice. The garden boxes are, I don't know. I haven't heard very much about them, except I had referred the Heather to the garden boxes at the mission, but I guess somebody wants to put garden boxes on the grounds of the CCC, and we don't know where yet. A couple of things came up during that discussion with Heather and about UDB's plans. One, there is apparently a security issue over there that I'm going to go talk to Heather about. I'm not real clear on what it was, but she mentioned it. And also in passing, she mentioned that one of the board members wishes to have some kind of a bike rally there in September. But that has not really come before the design review committee, and I'm not real partial to the idea just on the face of it myself. So I don't know anything more about that. One of the board members wants to use the facility apparently, or has brought it up, and nothing has been in detail has come up. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does, because my recollection is we haven't allocated the outside, and I really would hate to see something permanent go up that needed to be taken down because we allocated it differently. But going back then to the discussion on the writing any kind of a grant, is there a plan are you still following the terms of the agreement we all reached, which says grant writing will be joint and both sides will be participating?
No, we are not engaging that. And that was the topic of discussion, or that was the point of friction today. If you will. I mean, we didn't get into shouting or anything, but obviously we have two different views on. I don't know how you can have a different view on something that is as clear as that, but I would like to maybe have the attorney write a clarifying letter maybe to UDB, but I can talk to you about that separately if you want.
I think it would probably be good to have a discussion. One of the concerns that I think we all share, I would hope we all share, is that we're literally at least 18 months into the negotiations that we started with UDB on the potential Eccles Foundation joint grant, other USDA grants, and it seems like we're kind of stalled. And I'd really like to do some brainstorming with you, Jim, about how we get to a timeline of some of these things, and to make sure that both sides understand this is a joint process and it's not going to work if we're not jointly engaged.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I'm remiss on that. I haven't done my share of grant writing on that. I've started a few, but I'm not really. You're right. The conversation seems to go around in circles, and I can't seem to achieve a focus a lot of times within the committee, just because of the conversational style of, it just doesn't. It's quite challenging. Thank you, though, for your patience.
Aaron,
I'll invite you into the next meeting, and you can, if you choose, you can come in.
I'd like to. Aaron?
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of my questions in sitting in on these, and I want to make it clear, especially for the folks on the phone, kind of understanding how these meetings go. Certainly I attend as many meetings as I can fit in, but of course have no decision-making abilities. And one of the things that I have noticed is I'm not sure the right people are at the table in order to really move things forward. I consistently hear, and I think, I don't feel hopefully I'm not stepping on any toes here, but I don't feel as though Dave, I hear frequently that he is interested in retiring. And I think it's really important that we ensure that the right people are at the table who are going to see this, long term come to fruition. And while, I certainly appreciate all the time that, he's been putting in, I definitely want to make sure that we're represented, and then, we're getting the decision makers from UDB as part of the discussions on a weekly basis, if not every other week. I know everyone's busy, but I think that could be a big part as to, why things aren't moving forward, is because we don't have that buy-in and the right people on the phone potentially.
Well, Jim, if you send me an invitation, I'll jump into it, and then Grant and I can communicate about the attendance so we don't have three of us on there at once.
Sounds fair to me.
Okay, with
Any
you?
other questions? Thank you. Any other questions?
Last thing, that little solar thing is portable, so it would not be on the property. It'd be on a trailer. Just kind of ease everybody's mind about that.
Right. He's constructing the demo on a trailer.
It'll stay on a trailer?
Yeah, it'll stay on a trailer. He's going to be able to demonstrate it. And then the actual installation of the design will go at individual homes.
They'll be dropped off like little package units, and this will be a
Yeah.
package on a trailer. So it'll be a demo on a trailer.
Okay, well, thanks for that, and then I'll just look forward to the meeting.
Oh, yeah. Good. Welcome aboard.
I want to go to the banking resolution. I spent a fair amount of time on the phone with our attorney today, and the end result was there may have been a little bit of confusion, but we should have that by the end of the week. And what he'll do is probably plug in Zion Bank based on the discussions that have happened in the past, but it'll be changeable so that when you take it to the design review committee, if you choose a different bank, I'll be able to edit it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then, if there's nothing further, any questions, Lou, Linda? If there's nothing further on that, then let's move to number 3. Aaron, if you can give the update on the IT services.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Maybe I don't have an updated version. Was the committee number 3?
You may not have an updated version. We moved that down to be with the discussion of the creation of committees.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry about that.
No,
Sure. So IT services, I sent out an email yesterday kind of going over the options between DTS and NetForce. I'd like to start this conversation with, noting that this is kind of a big decision, especially if we were to approach this, from a contract basis and, ideally more of a long-term contract with either of these providers. As I'll share my screen here in just a second, but as we're looking at things, I think it's really important that we think about the assets that are being secured. So, initially all of this came about because, there was CARES Act funding. We were trying to ensure that we could stream and have better participation, with our community. And so, we have these 6 laptops, one for each of the council members and one for myself, that, this is what we're talking about, paying for moving forward. So the laptops themselves are paid off, but it is very important as governmental assets that they are protected. And so, fortunately or unfortunately, that means that you need a firewall, and then you need someone, who has more skills than what we have to ensure that nothing is getting through. And so I really want to open up the discussion. And again, maybe this is a discussion that needs to be held at a work session as to the usage of these assets on a daily, a monthly basis. If we're paying for 6 of these and we are not using all of them, I think that's a really serious discussion we need to hold. What I will do, I'm going to share my screen really fast to just kind of go over the comparison. And then from there, we can talk about, what questions you have, what questions I can bring back to each of these providers, as well as, if you have any questions about the actual services themselves. So I'm going to share my screen now. Of course, as a reminder, please holler if you have any questions. So DTS is the Utah run service. They provide quite a lot of services, even beyond what we're asking of them. We do currently receive services from NetForce. Again, the plan that we were on, and the reason that it was so much less is because the plan that we're on is no longer available. So I was able to reach out to one of their executives to get this a la carte pricing. When I broke, and did everyone receive the email? Is, you know, how in depth would you like me to go on this comparison before I move forward?
I'm going to go ahead.
Go ahead.
Jim.
I was just going to say, before we go any farther, do you have a recommendation? Is there something here that I mean, I can see there's a cost differential.
So I'll talk about the pros and cons. I would say that both are, there are pros and cons to both of them. So for DTS, my main concern is that if we needed in-house IT services moving forward, for example, needing to set up, for example, the CCC with internet in a similar system, these folks are based out of, DTS is based out of Salt Lake City. So there would be a probably pretty significant cost to do an installation. What they're proposing currently, just to get this changed over from NetForce, would all be included in the site support fee. So we would not pay any additional setup fee, but similar to when NetForce came in and set things up for you all, you know, running cable, having to do like that really in-depth install, there would be prices associated with that. DTS does provide you know, services to many governmental agencies, and, you know, kind of the package that they've put together for us, you know, really does hit most of the things we absolutely need. The only thing that they are not offering that NetForce was able to include in their a la carte is Microsoft 360. So this is really important. So you all can have Excel, you can have Word, all of the Microsoft suite items that we need to have on these laptops will be, you know, a separate thing. So I tried to make this kind of apples to apples so you can see, you know, how these fees compare. One of the items that I talked about last time was that DTS will kind of take over the internet piece. So this here, we would not be paying Emory Telecom directly, but would be paying them through DTS. Both of these would be migrating our current data. So our current email systems would be migrating to a new system. So DTS can immediately get us set up with a .gov domain, which in and of itself will have additional security features. You know, there's a reason that the .gov domains are separate even from the .org domains. So kind of to you know, really list us as an entity, as a local government entity. They do have 24-hour access help desk, and there would be no additional cost to transport everything. For NetForce, they are also recommending migrating our data, but they would want to take us to an Office 365 enterprise. So that would be Outlook. They also could probably get us up on a .gov domain, but it might take a little bit longer. In order to get their costs down a little bit, I took off the 24/7 help because that's included in the higher tiers. So this is kind of a gold plan, modified gold plan to also include like the cybersecurity training, as well as like that Office 365 that was not included on the basic, the standard plan, the gold plan right now. The big thing that I think is really important that we think about, again, going back to how many of these assets are we securing, is this VPN. So a virtual private network, what it's going to do is it's going to connect back to our domain, and essentially every time that you log into your computer, your town computer, it's going to be going through the network. And so all of, all the important things, even if you're not at the community center where that physical firewall is, everything's going to be circling back through that. And why that's really important is not only can they monitor it, better, they should be monitoring these laptops anyway, but in terms of like the data security itself, it's going back through our system as opposed to going out through any other like wireless that you might be on at your home, at a hotel, etc. So this is the part that I think is really important and why we would want to have these services. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I just kind of want to open it up. I do recognize that, there's a lot of things to be considered here. And so if we need to take this offline, I think we should. This is not a decision that I think you should rush, especially considering this is a monthly expenditure of hundreds of dollars. So I'd like to open it up for questions, clarification, and then just thoughts.
Hold on a second, Jim. So I'm just going to be point blank honest before we go any further. My brain will not be able to absorb any of this the way we're doing it. So I'm happy to let Aaron answer questions, but I'm going to ask you all to defer anything really big and substantive to a work session so that we can come back later that evening and vote, because I think Aaron is right. Right now, I've just got a ton of questions because I don't understand the language. I have to just say it. I don't understand the language. So go ahead, Jim.
Aaron, in your opinion, which one has the best security?
Pointed question. In talking with both of them, they are both qualified. Absolutely. I wouldn't consider them if they weren't. What I like about DTS is that all the time they are working on governmental type situations. They're probably more, shouldn't say more used to, but if there was a threat throughout the state, they would be able to identify that, and it would be something that they would check for us. NetForce, they're good at what they do. I wouldn't have a concern with either of them identifying and mitigating against security concerns, but I think DTS would maybe align to our entity better just because this is their bread and butter.
Thank you.
Grant?
Hey, my main concern is being hacked and held ransom. So I like the idea of the gov designation. I like that security. I think it gives us it's a more apt name for what we are. And I'm not happy with the guys that we have had. So when we get to the work session, I've got a pretty good idea where I'm going with this.
Yeah, just to kind of answer the biggest thing, and we saw it at the county level, there was a ransomware attack. Both of these solutions will have backup storage. Neither of them currently require a server, which is what NetForce had been kind of pushing us before the gentleman who was kind of our client manager left the company. So we're not being strong-armed into a server anymore, but we will have backup solutions that we ourselves would have a difficult time implementing solo. Luann?
Just a question, and I tried to figure this out a couple of years ago, but when we're using our personal laptops or our phones or whatever, is it still monitored when we open Gmail and we go to Google Docs? And so is that one of the reasons to secure our laptops? That was one thing I was never clear on before. I still have the same question.
Yeah. Valid question. No. So that's why these government laptops are so important, because as you can see by just the payment for the monthly services to secure them, we get that bumped up version. Now, if you have like McAfee or other antivirus software installed on your personal devices, that's great, but it's not going to be to the level of what we're paying for these government computers. So for example, if we were to get a phishing email, if we were to get, something we click on gets downloaded to your personal device, that's not protected right now.
but they can get into our Gmail and into Google Docs. Like that's like, is all of that not protected, or isn't that protected on another level?
It's so like cloud-based solutions, like the Google Docs and things like that, you know,
It seems to, hold on.
You don't have to answer now. That's one of my questions is how we can operate when we're all volunteers and spread all over the place. Like, do we have to took that all the time? It can wait till the work session. I don't need to know right now.
And thanks, Sue. I mean, I think that these are all really valid questions, which lead to more questions, which lead to more questions. And there are some decision-making things we need to do tonight. And I'd like to just set a work session so that we can spend the time and ask the questions and then vote in a knowing way. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Erin, great job. Just my eyes kind of focus on those charts. Let's go ahead and move to number 4. Erin, that's also yours, the update on the Blufftown addresses.
yeah, so for both of these, I just feel really good that I've gotten a lot of information over the last couple weeks. I will go ahead and share my screen again. Anne and Mary Gillum had a discussion with some folks at the state level earlier this year. I reconnected with them, and I'm kind of giddy to get to share with you what we received from them. So these folks they're called the Utah Geospatial Resource Center. So they've got maps and all kinds of fun things. But the biggest thing is they're the ones who maintain this website right here. This is the address point editor. We'll go in and update information in here, and all of these little data points go to all of the like really critical functions. So it's definitely like the 911 system, that they're going to tap into this system and extract data. For towns of our size, or San Juan County, it's usually updated on an annual basis. Once we really start moving in here, we can request from them that they update more frequently. As you can see, so hopefully this isn't super small. It probably is, but there are these little pinkish purple dots. So that's where information's already been entered. So as I kind of move around, hopefully not making you all too dizzy, you can see we're actually missing quite a lot of data. So any of these little buildings that don't have a pink dot, the state does not currently have in that system, that 911 system. And I'll move over here to the east side of town as well. They'll kind of populate. There are more here. It just takes a second to populate. But I will absolutely tell you that we are missing quite a lot of data. And so that would, that's kind of our biggest thing to start with, is the ones that we know the addresses, we want to go in and put this information in. So I'll be working with them. There we go. I'll be working in here to get that updated. So the second thing is that we really needed a grid overlay. And this was really overwhelming for me because I am I'm not like an AutoCAD person. We don't currently have software that is in the towns. We don't have any software subscriptions. So the folks at this state level went in and made us a very nice grid. So I don't know if you all can see this, but this is huge. Not only did they save us months of work, they saved us thousands of dollars in consulting fees. I am absolutely ecstatic. And so they actually put this out to our entire system. What you're probably seeing right now is just like a lot of red. But they specifically helped us. The east side of town has slightly larger grids than the west side of town. They were able to mold it to our geographical features. And so their next step is they're going to be moving this grid. Hopefully, they limited bandwidth, but they worked really quickly last time. They're going to be putting that into this system here. So the address point editor, as I said, that's where I would need to go in. Whoever's going to be doing this, I think we can talk about that next. You're going to be uploading the information into this system. So when we get the grid on, it would be really, really, really easy to just go in and be like, yes, okay, that aligns exactly with this point on the map. The other great thing that I was talking to both them and someone from Sevier County about is that we will not need additional software at this time. We can go in, we can use this, and this will kind of be our tracking when we are ready to have that subscription or have that software. All of this data can be exported to the most commonly used mapping software, GIS systems. And so it'll talk to it really easily. So we'll be able to hit the ground running very, very, very quickly once we get this grid in. And in the meantime, we can compare. So, if you had two screens up, you can compare these two, just to really, really get going and confirm some of the addresses that I know we've had a lot of questions about. So big win, super excited to have that grid system. In the coming weeks, I'd like to talk about our naming conventions. There's a 34-page document of kind of best practices on how you do naming. Certainly, as we start putting points into that address updater, we want those to be correct. So Zach will work with us to ensure that we're on the right track. But we can start talking about, especially the ones that fall directly on the grid. It is recommended to keep the third east, the numerical names. But once we start getting kind of winding roads that don't necessarily follow that grid, we can start talking about alphanumerical names that'll make it easier for folks to follow. So a lot more to come on this, but I did want to share what a big win this was. I feel like we have really good momentum. I'm still very excited about this project, and I've had folks reach out from the community who, who have input. So certainly, we'll be using all the resources that we can get, but I did just want to highlight what an amazing job the Utah Geospatial Resource Center had. I mean, that was a huge win. So lots more to come, but we're making good progress. What questions can I answer from you all?
Are you going to change people's addresses that are out of sequence?
That's a great question. So yes, the ones that are out of sequence or might have been self-identified in the past due to lack of resources, they will need to be updated. We recognize that this is a really big, it's a big deal to change your address. There are many implications, but the most important thing that we will bring back to the public is that, for safety purposes, it is very important for them to be sequential. You cannot have a 400 in a 600 block. It's not safe for anyone. So this is a big process. Certainly, we will be working with folks. The woman that I spoke with at Sevier County, when they went through this, they had about 30% that were incorrect, but she gave me some tips and tricks. We will be sending out official letters. There will be flyers. It'll be a community conversation. We will also be updating, so not only this address point, but we would also be updating FedEx, UPS, USPS. So it's really a collaborative approach to ensure that everyone has the same, this one point has the same address across all the systems. So it's definitely a big project, but it has been done, by other folks, and there are some best practices that we can employ to ensure it goes as smoothly as possible.
I'd like to make sure for the folks that have to change their address that we have kind of a one-point entry point, and it's thoroughly thought out so it kind of solves all the potential problems that address change could. So I want that to kind of be something that we offer our citizens.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Great job. It is an exciting project. Jim Sayers is excited by it. He loves a grid.
Yeah, I'm all a tingle.
I did. I was just giddy. I thought it looked great. So, but no, Brant, I appreciate you recognizing that it is a big undertaking. Insurance purposes, the list goes on and on. So it'll be a comprehensive.
So it was selfish. I think mine's going to have to change, really.
Luann?
I just wanted to say something about this grid. Sometimes we'll get calls down on the reservation that are like, 3,000 South 5th or something, and that they use that clear out. And maybe they don't always, but once in a while we'll get an address there. So the grid's great, and I'm glad you could access it and get her going.
Yeah, and that's a great call out, Luann. So yeah, certainly if we are going, and I shouldn't have assumed. So our 00 mark is Highway 191 and Cottonwood Wash, the actual wash itself. That is 00 for us. And so yeah, they move that grid out the whole, over our whole region. We certainly are going to focus on, the incorporated parts of Bluff first, but I do think it's beneficial. And even the folks at the state level said, it's helpful to talk to your neighbors to understand where that overlap might be in neighboring areas.
We got two other things that are on my mind that we need to just mention. Lou and Fire Dispatch have got a county map that find places that not many people can find. And then Drew's got his addresses, and I just want to make sure that kind of all that ends up being usable data. So just, as an aside.
No, I appreciate that. My hope is that we can add those plus codes. So each address, it can also have like an alias that it also goes by. So we can absolutely collaborate and have that as an additional data point that goes into the address modifier, updater, and it could include that geocode. Plus code, sorry.
Thank you.
Luann?
Okay, thank you. I just have one more question. That was one of the things that came up on one of these safety grants as a possibility to fund this project. So is this like a huge project, or are you going to be able to make it happen in-house?
By not having to use external software, it's going to really simplify it. I think I'll probably have a better idea when I get the initial data set of our current addresses and am able to compare that to the new grid system. So at that point, I could give you an idea of, we're talking 5% that are incorrect plus the additional however many new houses we have. I mean, if we're talking the 30% or 40%, I don't think it's that high, fingers crossed, then yes, I think we would need outside assistance.
And so because I'm getting a little paranoid here, I just want people listening who I envision tomorrow, some of us will be seeing emails and phone calls that go, I want my address, I don't want to change it, and fill in the blank. I want to assure the community that not one address will be changed by us, not one step will be taken without laying this out fully in a public hearing, without having input from the community, and then a solid vote from the council. So Erin's worked really hard. I'm just stunned by what she's accomplished and what we were able to do, because it's so important for safety, for health, for all of that. But please, everyone listening to this, you can call. I'm happy to talk to you. I'll answer your email, but don't assume that tomorrow morning you'll get a notice from us that says, my address changed. This is a big conversation. It's a project that Erin's managing. She'll bring it back as she needs to, and then we'll get everybody to the community center. We'll get flyers out, like Erin said. We'll do all this. It's not going to happen tonight. Does anybody want to?
That's a great point. And it is so important to have all of those pieces in place before we move forward, so it's not a surprise. So Anne, thank you so much for walking that back. That is a great clarification point. No addresses will be changing, I would say, in the next few weeks even. This is a big project. So
and thank you, Erin. This is amazing, because everything that I've heard and everyone I've talked to has said this is at least a 1 to 2 year project and a lot of money. So thanks for finding the resources and having the ability to do it. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, moving to number 5, update on the American Relief Plan reporting and the Community Development Block Grant. The contracts will be coming out anytime in the next couple of weeks for us to approve and sign to accept the money for the block grant. And I'm asking for authority to be able to sign that contract when it comes out. So if there's any hesitation at this point as to whether we should take that grant or not, you should probably tell me and we'll add it to a work session. Otherwise, I'll sign it. It doesn't mean that we can't step back if we decide a week later we don't want it, but I'm asking for authority to be able to sign the contract when it comes out.
I'd like to make that motion now, Mayor.
Second.
Any questions? Any further thoughts? All right, then all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Then it's unanimous. Moving to number 6, the update from Planning and Zoning on August 3rd, 2022. Lou and Aaron.
Sure. Made a few notes. They had a pretty simple meeting this last time. It was just last Wednesday. I gave the update. We'd had quite a few meetings, so I gave an update from us to them. And then they had one land use clearance possibility. It wasn't the full, this is where I'm putting things and whatnot, but it was over on a small lot in Cottonwood subdivision. So they had a lot of in-house discussion. The person wasn't on the call, but they had a lot of discussion as to what possibilities they have, what the setbacks, what could be possible. So that was a lot of the meeting. They also discussed the wayfinding project with the signs and the, that Aaron gave an update on that. And then they discussed quite a bit about the planning and zoning vacancies that are coming up. There'll be one for sure. And Aaron had a timeline and working backwards from when it needs to be to where it can be posted so that other people can apply to be appointed. And she laid that whole timeline out of when they need to let the council know if they're going to re-up for their position or not, so that we know what's available. And then it needs posted in the newspaper and put out there. So all those timelines and that was pretty much it. And then their meeting is next Wednesday. I don't have the date in front of me, but it's not tomorrow.
I have a question. Are there any updates to the general plan envisioned, or any prospective updates to the general plan?
They haven't discussed that in these last few meetings. Well,
there's a municipal property and infrastructure part of the general plan that is out of date. It has to do with acquiring infrastructure, and it even suggests we buy the old school, which we've done. So anyway, that's just one piece that I know of.
Jim, just so you know that this was on their work session, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, that's a 2023 plan, is to look at the general plan. And that kind of fits in with the vacancies that are up in November, and then moving in with the new group, 1 or 2 or 3 members being replaced. So that is on their radar.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Aaron, did you have anything else that we need to pass on?
Since I don't have the updated agenda, the vacancy, is that later down?
I am not sure that we have. Yes, it is later down.
It's
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, let's just keep going, because when we jump, I usually get confused and skip over something. So if there's nothing else, let's move to number 7, which is discussion and vote on use of Class C road funds to provide a match to the $55,000 from the San Juan Transportation Board. Michael, I know you're on. So Michael Havigan's going to present. I'd like everybody to keep in mind that Michael has presented this plan once at our work session and once or twice previously in different areas of our meetings. So I don't expect that he's going to have to go through everything point by point again, since we had that work session. So Michael, go ahead.
Well, excuse me. Yeah, so, I think I presented everything, and just waiting for you all to vote on it. And I can't think of anything else to add.
Well, if there are no questions, I'm willing to vote or make a motion to go forward with this, actually.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that a motion, sir.
I'll second that motion. I looked at the numbers. Michael, thanks for getting those numbers to us. This looks like a sound plan and sound project, so I'm all in favor of it.
Thank you.
Any questions for Michael or discussion? All right, Michael, it's a great plan. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thanks, everybody.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Michael, you're now free to send your letter to the Transportation Board. He was a little excited. He wanted to send it yesterday. I made him wait. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, Erin, you heard her. Okay. All right.
You got it.
Good
Let me know.
Number 8, discussion of dates for strategic planning. I've talked with Aaron. Aaron's talked with others. Aaron's been approached by other members on the council. So we want to set up some time for strategic planning once we find a strategic planner. But Aaron had kind of a game plan idea of how we could get started now rather than waiting until I actually am able to nail someone down. So Aaron, do you want to tell folks what your suggestion is to get us started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, certainly open to discussion. But what I thought it could be beneficial, especially to optimize the time of a strategic planner, if we were to hold a session to just kind of start talking about our big ideas. We can, just put some things on the board as to, what are the big ideas that we want to address. Maybe there are a few timelines that we can start laying out, but in order to really optimize the time of a strategic planner, who, would be very efficient, I'm sure, but I'd be open to being, helping to facilitate that conversation between all of you. I know, everyone has their own ideas and opinions as to what should be prioritized, but I'd like to propose that we can start that discussion in house to really ensure that we hit the ground running when we get that strategic planner lined up.
Aaron,
Grant?
do we have like a questionnaire that we could send out to council to kind of capture our thoughts? So, and then let's come together maybe as a council in one room for this session. I like the idea of this preliminary thing. I'll stop right there.
So to answer your question, we do not have a questionnaire. I think the idea was to do what we did more or less 8 or 9 months ago and just throw out ideas and try to make some adjustments. Jim, what was your?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a really preliminary exercise, and I think we could do it at a focused work session.
So what if we could do it 2 ways. We could do a session with Aaron facilitating to get the big ideas out there and any kind of timelines we're looking at, any concerns we're looking at, along with tying that to Aaron presenting the IT services and update and whatever other things we might need to add. Or we can break it out, just do the strategic planning, get together, brainstorming, separate from a work session. What do you want to do?
Either.
I'm in favor of a work session. I have been involved in those, and they are they're really, as I said, they're a preliminary exercise. You get a whole bunch of stuff on the board and you see it in front of you, and you start zeroing in on things that are of a priority to all. Everybody participates, and some people think of things that others don't, but it really gets your brain going, and it's kind of fun. It's like a game, and but it's very serious. You come up with a discrete number of ideas that seem to want to go forward, and it works. And from there, I think Aaron is correct. I think the strategic planning, once you've got that done, goes a lot better. It's a good stage.
So Jim, do you want to combine anything else with that and have a separate work session on these other things like the IT and whatever, or just try to do it all in one swell block?
I think one block would be as much as I'd want to do.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think we can get it all done. It's not like national policy or anything. I mean, we can pull this off.
We've got some we've got some 1.5 year terms left on council and some 3.5 on council. And that sets up sort of a natural idea of a little bit of a timeline. So I think we could have a separate session for this. Maybe ask everybody to bring their top 5 priorities in their list or something like that. That way we can start getting stuff on the board. But I like the idea of this.
Okay, so Brant, so you think we could do it all at one time? Both the strategic plan and then move into the other items?
I don't think we need to talk about IT much more at all. So if it's a 5-minute IT thing, then I'm good with that. But if it's a 45-minute IT thing, then I don't want to do it with this.
Well, then maybe you could excuse yourself from the 45-minute that I think I'm probably going to need to understand what we're doing.
Well, I think
what we all need to know is that our computer's safe, our information's safe, and we have a good filter. And both of those give that. It's just a preference of who do you want to do your business with. And I'm not satisfied with the old people.
So Luann, go ahead.
So I think what he's saying is if it's a short thing that we're adding on to our big planning, our big strategic planning, and I don't mean to say what you're saying, Brant, but what I'm thinking is that if it's just a couple little like tidy up things, sure, add them on. But if it's stuff that requires some prepping and some thinking and some discussion, then I'd rather do it in 2 separate sessions.
Okay.
I'm with you, Luann.
Okay, so you're switching.
I know.
That's okay.
That's
Okay.
because my understanding was lacking.
So Linda, do you have a preference?
I'm going to go with those 2.
Okay, I will too, because I will have questions on that IT thing and I don't like to vote on something I don't understand. So we'll split it into 2.
You can't vote on IT ever then, Mayor.
There's a lot of things I shouldn't vote on, Brant, but that never has stopped me.
I'm kidding.
Oh, that's okay. Aaron, you do a really good job with that kind of doodle thing. First of all, I don't know what your time frame is like. Let me just pick some dates and throw them out to everyone. Erin's going to need to meet some deadlines before she sails off on her vacation. So I'll take that back, Erin, and I'll figure out some dates and send it out and get a consensus. Does that work okay for you? Okay.
Yes.
All right, good.
And it's not necessarily like it could happen in September, right? It doesn't need to happen next week. Right.
Exactly. I think we all have a lot going on in August, and Erin's going to be gone. There's just a lot. I'm not even thinking August, Lou, but thanks for pointing that out.
Okay. I just want to make sure I was clear on what you were looking at. So, all right.
That's perfect. Okay. Number 9, update on the 2022 audit by Larson. So Linda and Erin have been doing most of the work. I've got a little piece I need to work on. Do you want to update folks? Do you feel like there's enough information yet?
So, so we have been working on the audit. Usually it's a lot later. It's November, maybe October. And getting some things both to our accountant and to Larson and Company. And today in particular, we got, I don't know, probably 4 different emails about information they want from us. They want our vendors, random checks, an analytical piece, several other things. So it's kind of like they're on espresso at the moment, which is like sort of draining me and Anne, but you know, it is what it is.
Thanks, everyone.
I would say
Audits are a great thing, but they're a pain.
Go ahead, Erin.
I was just saying, Linda rocks it as per usual. I'm just kind of in the background here, but happy to help where I can. But Linda is the one who's taken this one home, so it's appreciated.
Yes, Linda is the one that really gets the brunt of the work. I get the easy part. I get to sign the engagement letter. Can I have a vote to allow me to sign the engagement letter of Larson and Company?
So made.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
And you
opposed?
guys, I think they really appreciate the idea that you did get it to them. It's in between tax seasons and those big pushes, so they're probably happy to be able to work on it right now.
So I didn't hear anyone opposed, correct?
Correct.
All right, it's unanimous then. Good point, Lou. Thanks. Quick update on West Park irrigation and work projects. So Linda, Carol Shook, myself, I think that was it, met with Paul Martini, and Aaron. We went through how the system works. Aaron has all the stuff for the policy book, the shut-off valves, all the information that we need to know should we need to run the system without Paul Martini. And if you haven't looked, the West Park looks wonderful. It's really hydrated. We're not losing leaks and water and mud puddles. So thank you to Paul. Thanks to Aaron for picking up the rest of the documentation, and to Linda for starting the book on the irrigation in the West Park. So we're in really good shape on West Park. Grant.
Mayor, we want to make sure that we get the shut off date kind of on our calendar as a reminder for Aaron and for Public Works. So, whatever, Linda's lived here forever, and Lou and Jim kind of know when the first freeze is. So let's make sure that our reminder reminds us to cut that water off in case Paul's out of town.
Aaron has been keeping track of those kinds of things and creating a reminder system. So that's already been probably entered as I'm saying it. But yeah, thank you. There's a date of turn on and turn off that Paul identified that he usually uses. And so Aaron took copious notes, pictures.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
We could do a pamphlet on irrigation and Bluff. Jim, do you just have your arm up, or are you asking something?
I just have my arm up.
Okay,
Thank you for asking.
you're welcome. Number 11, one of my favorite repeat topics, continued discussion of signage knockdown. We lost another stop sign over by the fort, by the CCC. Thanks to Lou, and I'm assuming Thomas, the sign was repositioned. Again, it is not a legal placement because it's too short since it was sheared off. So I'm in the process of ordering 4, which are in stock, 4 4x4 untreated. We're not going to spend the money for treated. I just made that decision. That's ridiculous. We keep replacing it with treated expensive wood and it gets knocked down there. So we're going with untreated wood. I do need to arrange either for delivery next Tuesday, or if somebody is going with a pickup truck to San Juan Building Supply, they could pick up the 4. And I will call and make the arrangements for payment. Brand.
Mayor, I'd like to maybe have a meeting with the fort and maybe talk about rock placement so people don't cut corners on those 4 corners around that property. If we put large rocks there, we can make sure that people drive on the road as opposed to driving up and down the shoulders, which causes all these signs to be broken off. So it's something that in those 4 locations is needed urgently. And they have equipment to bring large rocks in and place them there. So it's something I've been thinking about for a couple of years, and I think it's the only way to solve the sign knockdown problem that we're having there.
So I had intended to go to the fort for other reasons today, and I didn't make it. That was part of what I wanted to do, was set up a meeting to discuss it. I've been over to the shed 3 times this week to see if I could get some yellow cones on a temporary, or orange cones on a temporary basis. But my understanding is that we cannot use rocks. We have to have something that's got some give to it. So while I agree with you, Bran, I think we need to look at what the regulations are for placement around the signs, which is why I was going with the cones. But we need to do something. This is getting, we lose at least 2 or 3 a season. Lou?
Yeah, if we keep replanting them, they just get shorter and shorter. But I do like the height of that, and I think that the regulations are for high speeds going through if you run off the road and run through a stop sign or something. But I think they're a lot more visible, a tad shorter. But that's maybe not something we can decide. The other thing about those right there, maybe they don't all need to be stops, but I suppose they need to be yields. And then on the same idea that Brant's saying, it seems to me like, because the last one was on the town hall CCC property. So, that one came down and Steve Helgerson was here. And so he had the new post and put it up. But it seems to me like there should be some sort of, not maybe a planter, but something that's maybe 2 or 3 feet up that circles those, maybe that you would bump into first. Something like that maybe there, because like at by the fire station there and by the corner of the Mormon church, they've outlined their parking there, and so that one doesn't get hit. I'm sure it got hit quite a few times too. But either have to delineate the street parking or protect all those signs that are in places that are part of the road. Because like we can't allow, like they can't just move out there and pile up stuff without our consent, since it is a public town right away.
So
I'd plant something tall like that, Lou. I think that's a good idea. But I want to ask the mayor about why we can't use rocks for landscaping there.
my understanding, and I would be happy to have somebody else read the instructions that we received from the county with the federal or the state guidelines as to how we have to do this. There's a specific height that they have to be at. There's a time frame in which they need to be replaced correctly. Some are 24 hours, some are much longer. Stop signs are 24 hours. And there is a requirement, if I recall correctly, and again, please somebody come and find those regulations and look. It has to be something that's flexible, that can be broken off or pushed over. It cannot be something that prevents you from doing that. Now,
Like a telephone pole, which is in the right of way.
like a what?
Like a telephone pole is in the right of way too. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't agree with what you're saying.
I understand.
In the right of way, they're not movable.
Grant, I understand. The telephone poles are a separate issue, totally separate regulations on easements than these signs. And I would be happy, absolutely thrilled, if somebody could find a loophole that says that we can do something different than what I've been told in the training. I would be happy. So I invite you to review those papers and see if you can find the change or the loophole. I'm fine with it.
I'll look at it, Mayor, and I'm not doubting you. I'm just asking where you got that information.
Well, I've been through the information with us before. Every time this goes down, I say the same things: the height, the placement, the type of sign, the hours we have to do it, and the flexibility. But I even went over there the other day when I was taking the photos and wondered, can you just take them all down? You know, and then if there's a collision, oh, well, too bad. Well, you can't do that.
I know.
Yeah, so I want to schedule something with the Fort to talk to them, because I think there are some things like maybe planners, some visual stuff that we can suggest that they do that we can, fits within the plan. But it's a discussion. And so hopefully someone from the volunteers at the Fort are listening to this. I apologize for not being over there today to pick up what I said I would, and I'll get there tomorrow.
Are we just getting these signs as they go down? We just reorder a new one?
Luckily, I'm going to cross my fingers. We have not lost the actual sign. We're losing the pole.
Yeah.
We're losing.
Maybe we should just pre-order.
Well, that's why I'm ordering 4 this time. I'm, having Steve.
Good idea.
Yeah, Steve run up for every single one. We're getting 4 this time.
I can grab those the first time I go over, Mayor, unless you need them right away.
No. Why don't I call it in then, Brant, and you let me know.
San Juan will bring those down for free on Tuesdays. They run a truck to Bluff on Tuesdays.
Right.
It's really a nice service because they have the invoice right there. You can pay for it online or pay for it over the phone. They have the invoice right there with them. They just hand you the invoice and they give you the stuff and away they go. So it's a great service. But I was thinking to the Fort people, there might be somebody there that could find out the regulations, do a little research, and figure out if there's like a triangle around them that can be made, some sort of curb around those or something. They might be helping that if we just ask them to help us research that.
Well, we've already got the research. We just need to review it. I'm certainly not opposed to anybody researching it, but we've got the criteria from Sam Cantrell as to what we have to do and how we have to do it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of all the other towns that have street signs on their, on their streets, and they have something kind of protecting them. Can't think of many that are just hanging out there. But anyway, we'll figure it out. I just like to do a little preventative work rather than repair.
All right, let's move to number 12. I'm looking at the time. We had a stakeholders meeting on August 5th related to the speed limits and pedestrian crossings, the school crossing. And I'm going to introduce Thomas Hayden. He's from St. Paul. He's doing an internship with me, kind of shadowing, connecting with various community organizations. And he has a skill that I definitely don't have. So we put him to work. And so I'm going to let you explain, Thomas, what it is you're doing. And then I'll go back to what we talked about in the meeting.
Cool. Maybe I should.
You're muted.
I just turned mine off.
And your
Thomas,
video's not on.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. I know. I was talking. I'm going to talk through. And just because my microphone is not that great, and my camera doesn't work on my laptop. So I'm basically have a radar gun, and I'm just collecting speed data from cars that are going by on the highway, and I have a spreadsheet that I'm adding the data to. I'm collecting it from a few different points in town because I know the speed limit changes a few times. It's like 65 in some areas. It's 40 directly through town, and then it like goes up to 50 when you're going through the canyon. I'm collecting data from those different points. I'm marking down like the location of the town that or the location in the town that I'm taking the data from, and I'm recording like the types of cars that go by, so you can differentiate between like semis and passenger vehicles and pickup trucks and vans and whatnot. And I'm also keeping track of if cars are entering town or exiting town. That does play a factor in. Sometimes the cars accelerate when they're exiting town. Sometimes they're coming into town and they're going like 65 when they're coming in. And that's basically the data. So I'll have a spreadsheet basically formalized, and I'll have all the raw data and like graphs that sort of present the data in an easier way to understand, just like maybe a bar graph that shows the different, like how many cars are going 35 to 40 and then like 45 to 50 and so on, all the way up so that you can see like the amount of cars that are speeding, by how much, and so on.
So does anybody have a question? Any of the council have a question for Thomas?
Well, I got to thank you for Thomas for that great idea and our organization. No questions. Michael and I ran radar a little bit. Thomas, it's a little bit of a cheap thrill, really. It's kind of back to the old days, sitting on the side of the road.
And I would just like to say, I listened to his presentation at their speed limit meeting that we had, and I think it's a great idea, and it's going to be really good information just for UDOT. And if we apply for one of the safety grants, it'll be a great set of data. And he's only here for a month, I think he said. So it'll be in this next month, and he's doing different times of day, different locations. So I think anyway, that's all.
So one of the impetuses was Luann and I had both been listening into various things on the safety factors, and this push to slow traffic down, make the highway safer through the country is a federal push through the U.S. Department of Transportation. And as you may recall, Jared Beard, our local engineer, said this is something they'll be looking at. So rather than being behind the 8 ball, we got people together, and I'll let Luann give an update. But basically, we had a meeting. Thomas presented. We talked about things. We kind of got an idea of stakeholders and gathering letters, which is what I was supposed to pick up at the fort today, was their letter of support. So Lou, what do you want to say or add to that?
Nothing really. We had, other than the people that were present, were the Friends of Cedar Mesa. They have a building right up on the highway. The fort is right on the highway. Both of those have people walking from the overnight establishments. They've got the campgrounds right across from the fort, and down at Friends of Cedar Mesa, they've got Desert Rose right there. So, you know, they all are witnessing the problem on the highway. And we talked about some of the grants that are available and the possibility of partnering with people on that, but going to meet again in another month, and then we'll have a lot of that data. We talked about some enforcement. They have been down quite a bit, well, more than normal, I guess. You know, slowing some people down, and you know, but that's one of the things. And it sounds like you've got the signs. You know, we talked about the signs, the speed signs coming in. So it's, and then my take on it is always that if we're going 30, if we're going 40, if you get hit because you're on the foot wide shoulder, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. But one really quick and easy way to slow everybody down is to take that turning lane back out on that west side of town over by the school. If the turning lane is so you move in, let everybody else speed on by. If they're stopping, it slows the whole thing down, and it would give us our shoulder back. That's just some painting. So it might be an interim thing before we get a sidewalk.
So this is, you know, like we've had before, it's a longer discussion, but we'll call the meeting again in a month and send out notices. Maybe we'll get more people wanting to participate too, but we'll be gathering some letters of support. Moving to number 13, Aaron and myself, and then Aaron and Linda and I kind of going through the policies that we have across the board, developed over the last 4 years. Amazingly, next month we'll have been together 4 years on this council. And so trying to identify gap by gap by gap so that Aaron can help work on them, so we can engage our attorney without incurring, you know, $1 million fee in 1 month for catching us up on policies we don't have. So I talked with Chris McEnany today. He's going to draft a sexual harassment policy for us to review and have a discussion of, and then be able to pass. In addition, he also recommended that this fall we have a work session on fees and setting fees, and on a general personnel manual, since we have now Aaron, we have Carol Shook, we have a maintenance and janitorial services. So we're increasing our staff, and it's a good time to get that personnel policy and harassment policies written and in place. So stay tuned. Chris will be bringing those to us.
Mayor,
Yes.
I was thinking about policies. Linda and I were talking about road funds, and we were kind of talking about a balance that we wanted to keep in our road fund. And I mentioned to Linda that once we kind of figure that out, we should make a little policy for that, for the road fund, kind of what we want our balance to be, if we want that to be a policy. So while we're talking about policies, it reminded me of that.
I just made a note of that, Bram. Thank you. Then planning and zoning commissioner vacancy process. And I'm looking at the time. I really want to allow some time for these other points. So Aaron, you were at the planning and zoning when they talked. Well, you worked on and then talked about the process. Why don't you quickly run through that so folks understand?
Yeah, so we're asking the commissioners, so there are 3 commissioners whose terms are expiring at the end of November. We have asked them to let us know by tomorrow whether they would like to be reappointed to the board. So that is a responsibility that falls to the mayor. And I know, there's usually input. There is an entire interview process that they will go through. So we are just waiting to hear who's interested in reapplying. We will need to get that submitted and posted pretty quickly. So more information on that forthcoming. But you can definitely expect to see information on our website. It will go to the San Juan Record, and then they will go through a similar process that they went through when they filled the positions about a year and a half ago.
And the only thing that I would add to that, based on discussions today with a couple of the commissioners from planning and zoning, is that if one or two or three choose to stay on, it makes the process simple. We wouldn't need to advertise. They could take the next term by appointment. If one of them does not wish to return, then that's the one we'll advertise. If two, if three, whatever. So far, we've had one person indicate in writing that she wishes to remain on. So stay tuned. We'll let you know what the deadlines are. But if anyone's interested in planning and zoning, reach out to me or to Sarah Barak to get more information. Then number 15, discussion and review of Bluff Town Council policy for creation of committees and boards. Did everyone look at and read what the policy is that's being proposed for advisory boards and committees? I think it was sent out a couple of days ago.
And I have 3 modifications. Just let me share really fast. So in addressing, and I know, we want to make this as simple as possible, but I do think hereafter as we're referring to town boards. And then Linda, adding a portion, the board shall provide regular updates to town council via attendance of a town council meeting, report, minutes, or recording as requested by the mayor. Frequency of the update shall be decided upon by the mayor and the board. And then for the attorney's duty, they can work with Anne to figure out who would be contacting the attorney. There were no other changes that I made to the policy than what was sent out. Questions or comments?
Thoughts? Anybody?
I thought it looked good.
Yeah, I like it.
Motion to approve with changes, Mayor.
Second.
And
Go ahead, Lou.
just for the audience, these are limited to 2 terms of 4. So after 8 years, people need replaced. So they can't stay on forever, and everybody needs to participate.
Which is a good point, because in our planning and zoning bylaws, we did not address that issue, which we'll need to amend to be consistent with this. We have a blank piece on that. We didn't have that. But thank you, that's correct.
And we also have a small town, so that there's also a variance. I can't think what you would call that term, but is a spot in there that if there's not other people, they can stay on longer if needed or whatever.
So all in favor say aye. Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. All right. Discussion and vote on forming a committee to explore planning grants and opportunities such as the active transportation plan, safe seats, and reconnecting communities. Molly, are you still on, or did we lose you due to boredom? I think Molly may have left.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty straightforward. We've talked about this a lot. There are 3 grants. We don't need to go through specifically what those grants are or deadlines or anything. The important thing is, do we want to form a committee that reports to the council to explore those grants, get drafts written of the grants to bring back to us to either say yes or no to?
I think we do, and I'd be willing to make that motion.
Grant?
I'm going to second that, Mayor. We do, and I'm going
So other than Luann and myself, are there any other council members that want to be a part of that initial committee?
Are you both going to be on that?
I'd like to be at least on the beginning part of it.
As
Mayor-
vice mayor, we can change off whenever you want. I was going to say I'd like to, but that would make it 3, and it's better to have just 2.
Nope, actually, if you would be willing to do it, that would be great. Lou, I
Yeah.
assume you want to stay on it.
Yeah, I would like to. We've, had a lot of training, a lot of contacts and stuff up till now. So I think I would like to.
Mayor, I'd like to meet with the committee and kind of turn over all the information from our previous Main Street. So once the committee's formed, maybe we could kind of pass on all the information that we have previously. So it's just an idea for continuity.
Well,
Maybe
I'm-
that would, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just going to say maybe that would be a good work session time to where we could get everybody's input.
And I think just to backtrack a little bit, we have that interface with UDOT and how that works with Main Street and how it is that the town has to be the authority to be able to sign off on things on the easements and right of ways, et cetera. So it is that big picture, which will involve Jared Beard getting back with us and making sure that we're under the, that the umbrella is there to cover all these things, but the committee's got to be formed at this point. So I think we've got it.
Do we have a name for this committee?
Let's let the
Like-
committee name
Yes.
themselves.
Main Street.
SS4A.
Okay,
There's a couple of them. There are a couple, and the action plan, the active transportation plan is key here. So I think we can name
I
it.
think that the committee should have a discussion of what they want to be called and bring that back to us. So did I take a vote? I lost track. I've got it first. I've got a motion and a second.
You
No.
did not take a vote.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, then Utah League of Cities and Towns Annual Conference is October 5th, 6th, and 7th. It's in Salt Lake at the Salt Palace. I have registered and I reserved a room for 2 because Linda had talked about going. I hadn't heard from anyone else until the other day, and then Aaron talked about going. Aaron has a request in writing to us that I think we've all seen. And I'm thinking, Linda, do you want to address the questions we were talking about?
Yeah. We talked about several different things. I used to go to national math conferences that you had every hour, you had many choices to choose from. This is a small conference and with good information, but it's limited, and it feels like having 3 of us go might be too. We might all be more or less getting the same information. My thought is that Aaron is our alternate, and in the time of COVID and other things, and if she ended up not going, I think she should go to the half-year conference because she'll get different information. So we've never actually been to one of these conferences before. But that was just my idea that plus it's cheaper if 2 people go in the same car and stay in this, get one room. It's pretty pricey. Is the other thing. So
Here's what I think, Linda. I like the idea of just 2 go, that we do that, just like you said. And Aaron could be the alternate, but I think Aaron ought to go anyway. So, I think we should probably plan on 2 rooms. We could all ride up together. Aaron needs to go to these conferences, especially her first year as a manager, I think.
So I was going to make a suggestion. Why don't we approve 3 to go, knowing that 2 are going? And let's see, in the next day or two, do some, Aaron, you leave Thursday though, don't you?
I'm here this entire week. I leave Saturday.
Okay.
But I would also, I certainly in the letter, recognize it is a large expenditure and
It's
you know,
great
I
training.
think it needs very
Yeah, well, you get what you pay for with the Utah League, and I'm willing to make that motion to pay for 3 if needed.
Second.
I agree. And the league is what I've learned. They call themselves the league. They're referred to as the league. Heard from a Humanities Council board member that they have a lot of power and they really listen to them. They do a lot of the legislative things. I think it's really important to hear the lawyers, all the discussion that they have, and to network with those people up there, I think would be really helpful for whoever's free to go. I can't go, so don't worry about me going.
I can't go either, so.
I can go, but I won't.
Yeah.
Motorcycle.
All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
In the past, you've never been to one of these, but we have signed up to listen to them. And they have been helpful, but most people haven't listened to them. So it's,
Well, this
I haven't
saves,
seen
this saves us.
agendas.
Yeah, the agenda isn't out yet, the full agenda. I think it's a half agenda right now. When I was on a meeting with Cameron Deal, the executive director, he thought he'd have it finalized and out maybe by this Fun Friday. So I don't think it's out yet. So just to recap, we've approved for 3 to go. We'll do some continued discussion. I think it's worthwhile registering and holding the room, 2 rooms. And then we can do that fine-tuning discussion. There are cancellation policies that are pretty liberal and substitution policies, and so we'll just work on that. Is there anything on the other number 13?
I'd encourage everybody to look at the financial report. It's the most clear it could be at end of year. Linda, thank you. Great job. And it really shows all our categories kind of annually and breaks down. So it's a good report. 7 pages. Print one up and look at it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, before we go any further, Lou, what time is it?
7:33.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, I'm going to turn off the recorder. Thank you, Craig, as usual. Thanks,
Good job, everybody.
Everybody.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Turn it off.